Chris, I don't know if the spot that Kyle Fletcher has at All Out was originally possibly going to go to Wardlow before Wardlow suffered the pectoral tear. I reported earlier this week on PWTorch.com that Wardlow was scheduled to face Hangman probably this year. I didn't get a direct timetable, but looking at the way this played out with just recently Kyle Fletcher declaring, or Don Callis declaring for him also, he's going to become the most successful TNT champion ever. And I'm like, okay, he's going to be, primarily on Collision, establish a hot streak, really become a dream match for Hangman after Hangman dominated for a while. And that would be kind of the end point for the Callis family, but Wardlow would be this fresh returning opponent. Had Wardlow stayed healthy, do you think that was the plan based on the lay of the land of everything? And do you like that better? Or do you like going right to Fletcher right now? And, Wardlow, depending on how long he's out, he can be maybe the final challenger from Callis.
Is there a third option? I do think that Wardlow was a plan for Hangman, but I have trouble believing that he was the immediate plan. I think a lot of people were saying Wardlow was intended to be getting a solid push when he came back, and making him the first contender in an almost obvious loss to Hangman probably wouldn't have been a great way to do that. Yeah. But I don't think it makes a lot of sense to put Fletcher there either, because he's on the up and up. I mean, he looked completely at home in the ring with Hangman, cutting a promo that I thought worked really well. But it seems like such a weird match to go with at this point, because neither one of them can afford to lose. So I don't think it's Wardlow, but I don't feel like this was the original plan either. So I don't know what the original plan was at this point.
Yeah, I think my feeling is it's too soon for Fletcher. I'm not as down on either option as you, but I agree with the downside of both. I like the idea of Fletcher being on a separate path for a long time. Like in the 90s, it was like, will Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels ever wrestle? And it was like, that was the dream match that Vince was keeping in his back pocket. I think good bookers keep a big match in their back pocket, and they plan ahead, and they build anticipation, and they don't give it to you, but until you just, you feel like this is the dream match I got to pay to see. I'm not sure what that is in Tony Khan's back pocket, or if he's thinking that way right now with booking. Now, in his defense, or I don't know if defense is the right word, but taking into consideration Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega is going to be sort of part-time. You got Swerve Strickland with an injury. Orange Cassidy's out. Jay White is out. I did a Wade Keller hotline on the lay of the land of focused primarily on AEW's babyface division. I might do one on the heels later this week too. That's for VIP members, about 20 minutes of just analysis of all this. The thin babyface side, but they also do have a thin heel side. I mean, they're in every booker, when they have plans, sometimes have to do an adjustment and it falls short. And I mean, Tony Khan's been facing a lot of that with, Adam Cole's injuries. I mean, there's been so many things that have derailed ideal plans. So, I want to give a little slack and not be overly critical, but also realistic about the fact that this does feel to me like a good match. But if Fletcher's going to be a top tier star, you don't want him to be like the second guy after Josh Alexander who gets a title shot and comes up short. And with nobody at ringside, and this being early in Hangman's run, I just don't think people are going to go in thinking he's got a chance to win. So what do you think about the story they tell here, and does it end up being a setback for Fletcher?
I don't really see how it isn't. I mean, there's no world in which he wins. Like, you're not going to take the title from Hangman already. The only thing I can see is some sort of a no contest, non-finish. Maybe you get a Mark Briscoe in there, an MJF in there. Maybe Hook shows up and sort of teases that he's part of the family.
But he's not officially yet, so it's legal to interfere.
It's not breaking the pact.
Yeah, little
maybe Takeshita sort of gets in the way somehow and like leaves the family, but still costs Hangman. Like that, I don't see a way to get out of this without diminishing Fletcher. But when I think about who's on the roster of the family right now, who's the better choice? I mean, Rocky Romero, no. Lance Archer is and he's probably a bigger step down. Brian Cage is injured. I could possibly have bought a Brian Cage match there. We haven't even seen Trent for a while. Yeah, who else is even there? Like, the only other option is Takeshita, and that's one of the matches that I have to think Tony Khan is keeping in his back pocket.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think we've seen Takeshita and Hangman.
But it feels like Takeshita should be a babyface by the time they get around to it.
And he's got to go through Okada first, which again is another big match that we're all waiting. And that probably should be for a title. But when I looked at the bracket that they flashed up for the unified title, I'm pretty sure they're scheduled to meet in the second round of that.
I know, that's what it looks like. Well, it's they're all qualifying for a triple threat. So it'll be Takeshita, Okada, and then a third person who will likely do the job in that match. What was the third match? It's Beast Mordos and Mascara Dorada. So,
well, I mean, Mascara Dorada is the expected winner there, and of the three, I don't think any of those should be losing. So, booking themselves into a corner again, I felt like the whole show was just AEW laying a table for 2 hours. And I had to remind myself a couple of times that the pay-per-view isn't this weekend, because this felt like setting everything up for a pay-per-view this weekend. But I'm still, I don't know what a better option is than Kyle Fletcher. And I think it really illustrates how poorly constructed the Don Callis family is, because you've got 3 people in there who should be leading their own stable, and yet they're all sort of subservient to each other. It's kind of confusing.
I've been advocating for weeks or maybe years in a more generic sense for factions to appear on TV together. In the case of Don Callis family, establish the hierarchy, establish the dynamic, tell stories with each of the wrestlers, so it doesn't feel like what you just did, which is you can just make like a short-term decision, but there isn't really a backstory to justify who's going first. I mean, Josh Alexander's a nice opponent for Hangman, but it didn't feel like, oh, he might win, or, oh, this is a tough test that's going to, like, there just wasn't enough backstory to make it feel like anything other than, again, it's one of Tony Khan's booking patterns / weaknesses, which is you put a top-tier guy against a second-tier guy, they go 20 minutes, the top-tier guy wins. It always happens. If it's 2 top-tier people against each other, there's often a screwy finish. So there's a predictability to it. And I don't mind predictable if you get the most out of the match. And they could have done something to make Josh look like more of a threat with some promos and that kind of thing. So it filled some TV time. It was a nice match, but there wasn't any suspense and not enough real, like, even post-match drama. It's just like, okay, Hangman beat the guy you expected him to beat, and now we're going to move to another person, and it's going to be Kyle Fletcher. So, I mean, again, it's like I've seen worse pay-per-view matches from a quality standpoint. I mean, like, it's going to be good. The critique of this is a compliment to Hangman and Fletcher. So anyone who's like an AEW fan going, oh, they're complaining. I'm complaining because I want to see Fletcher versus Hangman mean more when it happens. Now, there's a way to book this and have it seem like next time Fletcher's going to get him. He just wasn't quite ready yet. And then he goes on a rampage. Losing to Hangman is kind of a defining moment for him. It gets talked about. It gets weaved into his personal storyline, the journey he's on. He gets more vicious. Maybe he had a moment of weakness trying to play fair, so he won't play fair anymore. I mean, I'm not ruling out that Tony Khan didn't master plan this. There's something in mind. It'll play out. But it doesn't feel ripe. It feels a little bit early. Fletcher is a future star, but it's not quite there. Chris.
A couple of things on that. I actually thought that Alexander and Hangman did not work well together. There were a lot of moments in that match where the cooperation was obvious. There was a lot of daylight on some big shots, especially the spots where they were going either out of the ring or back into the ring. A lot of those moves looked really clunky. There was a scoop slam that it was blatantly obvious that Alexander just leapt up into Hangman's arms.
Oh, he bumped over the top rope backwards before Hangman's arm touched him, and then when he clotheslined him over the top rope, it barely grazed him.
Like there was a lot of clunkiness in a match that should have been good because both people are excellent performers, but sometimes things don't work on the night or they just don't work well together. I think when you're talking about telling a story and this being a step for Fletcher towards eventually getting to that title and having a meaningful title match, that works better when the roles are flipped, when the world champion is the heel and the secondary champion is the face who is on a journey. We don't normally talk about heels being on a journey to a title.
Yeah.
They normally get it through some nefarious means, and then the journey is to take it away from him. And I don't really want to see Fletcher being the one who turns out of the family. That needs to be Takeshita.
Yeah, and you can't. I mean, Danny Garcia's already turned too many times to take him seriously, and I don't want Fletcher to be one of those people who gets turned out of need or convenience. He should be protected, a long-term heel. So when he turns babyface in 4 years, it means something. Like he should be, late 20s when he turns. Not anything in the next year or so. I mean, I really am a believer in long-term
really
keeping people.
He's a really good heel right
absolutely.
now.
And he'll be a good babyface after.
It.
Yeah, he'll be a good babyface when the time comes. But I'm serious. It should be 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, I wouldn't argue if you just committed to that. Okay, let's pause and do a quick introduction, and then we got chat room comments on this topic, and then we'll get to some other things, including the Danny Garcia turn, the mousetrap table staple in the butt and crotch and boobs match, other things set up for All Out. This is a Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com, and also the host of various podcasts, the Wade Keller Podcast, the Wade Keller Post Shows, and a bunch of VIP exclusive shows, including the aforementioned Wade Keller Hotline that is going up today for VIP members. 20 minutes of analysis on AEW's babyface roster, the options, what's off the table, what could be done, what should have been done to prepare themselves, and in sort of as insurance for when you lose some top stars. We've got some chat room comments on that too. So if you're not a VIP member, PWTorch.com/GoVIP is the place to go to get all the information on becoming a VIP member. Unlock over 20 years of podcasts on demand dating back to the mid-2000s, 2004 or 2003, I think. Post pay-per-view roundtables covering that whole span. Hundreds of retro radio shows from the 90s that have been moved into the MP3 format that you can get on demand. Our podcast feed that's compatible with Apple Podcasts. You can also go through Spotify or Patreon. Also, newsletters dating back to the late 1980s, weekly coverage of wrestling, predating the website era and the podcast era, and much more. An ad-free version of our website, too, loaded with news, editorials, special features, flashbacks, live TV, and pay-per-view coverage. Tons of benefits. Again, check out details. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Check out a small business if you appreciate the way we cover wrestling. Get all of what we do. And support us at the same time and feel good about it. All right. So like I said, we're here to talk Dynamite, and you're welcome to join us. We've got a chat room that is open if you're watching us on our YouTube channel. That's where we live stream our post shows. I host the Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown post shows Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We also have the NXT post show with Nate Lindbergh, Kelly Wells, and the supporting team. And then we also cover pay-per-views and PLEs with post shows on weekends. So we'll have that coming up in a week and a half with a double shot on Saturday. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to manage all that with the overlap. But we'll have updates on that next week. So if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Join in the chat. You can email us also, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. And you can find a link to be a video caller at in my TV report on the PW Torch VIP website covering Dynamite. As always, you're invited to, encouraged to check out my TV reports to see what's happening on shows you don't watch or to see what I'm saying about shows that you are watching. I often add analysis when I have more time the next day, so it's worth going back to see if I have done that. I did that to last week's Dynamite report too, which I posted late because I had other things going on in a rare conflict last week, but still watched the show and did actually expanded analysis of last week's Dynamite. So all that at PWTorch.com. Hope you're checking it out. We also have a poll up asking who was more defining of the era of tag team wrestling, the Hardys or the Dudleys. Last week I was at a couple TNA TV tapings, watched the Hardys and the Dudleys stand in the middle of the ring and promote their Bound for Glory tables match. And so we have a poll up you can vote in. Also, we have a poll asking if the absence of Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay, two of the top centerpiece babyface attractions, being out is enough to get you to stop watching Dynamite. Now, maybe this isn't the show to talk to people who aren't watching Dynamite, but maybe you skipped it and you're just watching our show or listening on the podcast side of things. Go vote and let us know if that made enough of a difference to deter you from watching or not. So yeah, lots of good stuff at PWTorch.com every single day, including the news of MJF and his third movie gig that broke today. So encourage you to do that. Lots of good stuff over there. But we're here to talk Dynamite on the post show. We're live on YouTube and then, of course, distributing it on our podcast feed. Search Wade Keller to subscribe to the podcast feed. The blue logo and the red logo both pop up. The red logo is the post shows. The blue logo is our main podcast and other pre-recorded podcasts, our main flagship, I should say. And Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net joined me a week early yesterday for the flagship. A lot of AEW and WWE and Impact talk in that, and some Vikings talk too after a Monday Night Football win over the Bears. So check that out if you haven't yet. Again, on the podcast side of things, just search Wade Keller and you'll get both shows. Finally, search PWTorch also to get the PWTorch Daily Cast, a whole other array of shows offered for free, different themes each day of the week with different hosts and co-hosts. So you get a lot of different voices, all with the Torch approach to wrestling analysis. Chris Lansdell is the co-host you have heard, and if you're watching us on YouTube, seen so far on the show in our A block talking about the Hangman Fletcher match being set up. Chris, welcome to the show. Good to have you back in the co-host chair.
Always fun to do these. Thanks for having me, Wade.
Always great having you on. I see your subtitle for podcast listeners. They don't see it. You are calling yourself the Utah Appreciation Society founder and sole member. You know, I might join that. I'm a fan of Wheeler Yuta. His demeanor, his ring work, his haircut, his anger at fans for not, respecting him or treating him with dignity and respect. I love his act. Some people scoff, but I'm with you, Chris.
I think he's just done a job with an unenviable role and done it so well. He won me over when he went over to Japan and did the Best of the Super Juniors a couple of years ago and really put on a good show against some of the best people in the world at that point. And he gets so much vitriol from fans because of the role he's been put in as this annoying little pest. But he's playing that role that well that people want to hate him. And that's because of how well he's doing. It's unfortunate that every time he's had the chance with the microphone, his voice is cracked at key moments. But in the ring, he's very good. He's done really well at playing this sort of killer. He reminds me a lot of one of the characters from Peacemaker, Judo Master. If you haven't seen it, you really should be watching that show because it's hilarious. And I really like everything he does. And I think, he needs to get a bit more recognition for the job he's doing as the annoying pest.
Chris, tell people what else you do for PWTorch, especially your Japan coverage and the is it 9 stars yet? The 9-star podcast?
We're getting that. It'll be 9 stars, I think, next time out. I do a lot of the New Japan coverage. We are on a bit of a lull right now, having just finished the G1. The Road to Destruction starts this weekend, though, which is their next sort of set of shows coming up to a major show. There's a couple of title matches coming up, and then we'll be into tag team season. We'll have the Super Junior Tag League and the World Tag League, hopefully with some participation from AEW. It's always nice to see some of the AEW teams going over there and getting exposed to the Japanese style. It's a bit of a down period for a lot of people because tag team wrestling is not everyone's cup of tea, but I greatly enjoy those tournaments. It's a lot of fun. And New Japan, they have a real opportunity right now with people being down on a lot of the North American product to right the ship and actually get some people interested in what they're doing. I really hope they take it. I think they've been sent some clear messages about how people are seeing their booking right now. Whether or not they listen remains to be seen. But I think when you look at the G1, it was very flat. And the G1 is normally home to at least a couple of match of the year contenders. We did get those in the semifinal and in the final. But I do believe that the results of it, the fact that only one wrestler was a long way away from a 500 record, no real storylines throughout the whole tournament, they've got some repairing to do. And I think if they start doing it and they start listening to some of that feedback, this is a really good time to get in. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. By the way, Sean Radican has a cover story in this week's Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter, which is VIP exclusive. The PDF and all text version will be up tonight. Reflecting on G1. We hadn't really, because so much was going on, we hadn't really given the space we usually do in the newsletter to kind of document it historically as best we can in the space that we have with everything going on. And so Sean does a great job with his news style write-ups of New Japan. And this is another strong article from him, and it's the cover story this week. Would have been AJ Lee Mania if it weren't for that. But glad to have Sean getting a chance to write the cover story this week on the G1 and hitting some of the notes you did and giving an overview of the tournament too for people who didn't follow it or people who want to see what Sean is kind of thinking about it a couple of weeks removed. All right, cool. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about what people are saying in the chat. I'm going to kind of do this just kind of in the order that people post them and can kind of respond after I read a few of them. First of all, the idea that no one will be at ringside is a giveaway. I'm not conflating the Shelton Ricochet match where no one's allowed at ringside. Am I? That really, like, they really agreed.
Hangman said he needed it, and then Fletcher said, "I don't need anyone," but I don't know if they're actually going to make it an official stipulation for the match.
Okay. Well, if they do, they kind of, I wouldn't say they ruined it, but I mean, it just means, Fletcher's going to break the agreement. And then what's the consequence? He doesn't win the title or he gets away with it. Anyway, don't want to think too hard about it, but they did have two similar things on the same show, which isn't always great. But Gilbert Arbalo says it's a giveaway that Fletcher is not going to win because the idea would be, that's his excuse that he didn't have Callis with him and he underestimated how much he needs Callis, and that would define him more as a heel, that he needs a manager to help him and guide him. Edward Sladek says, I'm not a fan of Page versus Fletcher. Fletcher has a title. Let him run with that. Let him mature away from all the other stuff. Build him up for a year off to the side. No need to do this match now. Yes, that's how I feel. Adam Kidd says, unfortunately, they're soft with heels on the top. They're soft. They're so thin on top heels. Where else can they go? Well, you got to plan for that stuff. Have people ready to go. Have a better defined bench, basically. Kyle Fassel says, Hangman and Josh Alexander was good. Rico and Shelton was good. In-ring is always good. Just still lacking the story. Although I agree with you on, I was hoping Hangman and Alexander would be crisper than it was, but there was some good stuff to him. And it wasn't, I think it was a largely crowd pleasing match, even if it wasn't polished. Derek Hubbard says Fletcher is the most promising young star in AEW. He is not a finished product, but his improvement has moved him past all the other rising stars who have been running in place for far too long. Chris, just expand a little bit on what Fletcher has going for him, but also, do you agree with Derek that there is room to grow? And if so, what is that growth that you'd like to see?
Oh, I mean, there's definitely room to grow. The kid's 26 and he's never been put in this position before. He's got just some learning to do simply based on a lack of experience more than anything else. He's got the look for sure. He looks the product, even though with those glasses on, you could be mistaken for thinking it was Ian Riccaboni's younger brother that was standing in the ring, because that resemblance is uncanny.
Yeah.
He's very crisp in the ring. He's got great athleticism. He can talk. He's very comfortable on the mic. His Australian accent isn't too strong, even if being English, I'm duty bound not to like it. What he's missing, apart from experience, I think, is he still needs to learn to edit himself. A lot of his matches seem to have 6 or 7 sequences that should be the end of the match, but then he finishes with a brainbuster, which less effective than half the moves he did leading up to that.
That's kind of a late 80s, 90s finisher.
It is, and it could be a finisher now, but when you've done like a tombstone on the steps right before it, it's almost like taking them over with a headlock at that point.
Yeah.
I think that's a common disease in AEW, but when you are trying to make yourself a name at the top of the card, pick a finish and then lead everything up to that. Don't just try and go crescendo and then come back down a little bit to finish the match. I also think he needs to do a little bit better with how he positions himself during the match. This is something that is a huge nitpick, and I'm a huge fan of Fletcher. I think he's got an amazing future.
Hey, I asked. You didn't volunteer.
But I think sometimes when he's setting up for his big moves, he starts to set for it and then has to reposition himself towards the hard cam, which is something that probably would have been taught out of him in NXT. And he hasn't had an opportunity to go through that sort of fine-tuned training. It's very teachable. I don't think he's anywhere near being a write-off. He's probably about 80 to 85% there. And this match with Hangman, it has the potential to be sort of a stepping stone for him. I could have done with waiting 3 or 4 months for it.
Yeah. There's his look either feels authentic or it feels like someone cosplaying somebody trying to look rich and important. and I don't spend a lot of time talking about it because I just want to hear from other people about that, like what their impression is. But it's like, look at my watch, look at my clothes. I'm going to not wear socks. I'm going to wear nice shoes, and I'm going to wear these glasses. And then he kind of has that high-pitched, whiny voice. And part of me thinks it's a feature, not a flaw, because you don't want to be so cool like, Ric Flair, where people are starting to cheer. Ric Flair, 80s Ric Flair, where people like cheering you. You get the heel fans cheering you. He does look like he's kind of cosplaying a really successful 30-something. He's just a young kid trying to pretend that he's something else. There's, some maybe I liked this example because I was a big fan of this era of world-class championship wrestling. Gino Hernandez, the handsome half-breed. There's a element of that to him. He's a superior in-ring wrestler to Gino, but personality-wise, flamboyance, kind of heel, managed by Gary Hart, another bald manager. There's a little bit of similarity there. People can Google that or look for a clip.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was thinking more Chris Adams than anything else, but because of the wrestling ability.
And honestly, because of the accent, and there's probably, I'm not gonna disagree with that either. Chris Adams turning heel was fantastic. The Kevin Von Erich, Chris Adams feud, one of my favorite feuds growing up. Both of those are compliments. I think there's some similarities with both of them. By the way, they were a tag team called the Dynamic Duo, and a great tag team who feuded with Kerry and Kevin Von Erich. So, there's both of them work, and I can see a case for either. So, I think it works because he's not in danger of getting cheered. Like, he's not cool enough. In that way, he looks like he's trying to be more cool than he is. So ultimately it works. But the downside is, does the fans, the viewers that AW is chasing, look at him and think, it's kind of minor league. He doesn't look big time. He looks like someone who's an indie-rific guy who's trying to look big time. And so I worry that it works for the audience they have, but it doesn't help grow the audience if it does look a little cosplay. I'm pretending I'm a big star. But I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling on it. I'm just kind of throwing it out there as a conversation piece.
I think they're kind of between a rock and a hard place right now. I think it's a fair comment to say you need to be prepared with a contingency if some of your top stars go down. I don't think many people would have enough contingencies to make up for this many people being out at once. And at some point, you need to put your next layer up against the top so that they can get themselves to the point where, okay, your Carl Fletchers and your Takeshita's, and I can't even think of anybody else who's in that grouping right now, but maybe even a Speedball or somebody, so that they are ready to make that next step. And I think, and this is a weird thing that just came to my mind, that he's not doing himself any favors with the color choices, because I felt like today his shirt and his skin tone and the tie were also close to each other in tone. It was kind of hard to see. I think he needs a bit more contrast in his colors. Here I am giving fashion advice to somebody on TV with a professional stylist. But I feel like if he's trying to look the part, maybe a bit more contrast, a bit more dark and light together, something that stands out so that you can actually see how sharp he looks. I don't mind the no socks. Philadelphia apparently did. That was quite a fun moment. I think Hangman sort of touching on it worked really well. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I still think he looks too much like Ian Riccaboni. That's a problem for me, I'm afraid.
I also think if we want to jump from the mid 80s to the mid 90s, a little bit of Shawn Michaels when he first turned heel. Yeah. The sunglasses, trying to find himself as a heel. Not too different age-wise probably or developmentally. So those are all, by the way, really nice comparisons. Gino Hernandez, a great heel performer. Chris Adams, really good in the ring, really good heel. Great babyface, too, by the way. Don't think about the 90s Nitro Era version of him. Look at the world-class era. He had a really good stretch there. And also, and then Shawn Michaels. These are good compliments. I think Fletcher, and that's why you don't want Fletcher to feel like a B plan that you're rushing. And that's whether that's the case or not, there's a little bit of a feeling of that. Kyle Fassel says, could Fletcher get some wins over top guys prior to the match? Make us believe he can win. And I think maybe that's what it gets down to is Fletcher is a big star and a growing big star. He's, moving into the top tier realm, but nobody believes he's going to beat Hangman. And I sort of feel like when Fletcher faces Hangman, there should be a thought that he might win. And I just don't think people are thinking that.
It's interesting because you mentioned Shawn Michaels and we mentioned Michaels and the Hart earlier. And people forget that before WrestleMania 12, those two faced off at a Survivor Series, and Hitman won that match. I believe Shawn might even have been the Intercontinental Champion at the time, but my memory might be failing me there slightly. That was a really good match, though, and that might be where we are here with we've got Fletcher in the Shawn Michaels role. This is his first shot at the big title before he comes back in 8 to 12 months with his WrestleMania shot, and maybe we get something there.
That's probably how it will ideally play out. Whether that's given the match is booked and it's going to happen, I think you're right. That's probably where we go. The question is it better to wait, or does Tony Khan have something in mind, pulling from the history that you're referring to in other situations like this, and go, this match is not ripe yet, but that's going to be the story, that Fletcher wasn't ripe yet for this spot, and the next year is going to be his journey to get back there.
And maybe this is where they start sowing the seeds for him to leave the family down the line. Not yet, please, not yet. But Hangman comes out, a couple of weeks on Dynamite and says, "You put on a great match. You tested me," because he's a face. He's allowed to say that. Mm-hmm. But I was right. You aren't ready. And when you are ready, I'll be here to defend the title against you a second time. Whatever. We can go with that. I'd be fine with that if that's the way we go.
Let's go back to the chat, some defenses of this. Ramen Noodle, usual suspects. Ramen Noodle says, Fletcher can afford to lose. The TNT champ should be below the AEW champ, and there's little doubt that he will look like a contender during the match, just like he did in tonight's promo battle. Zach Barber says, it's early, but it works. Fletcher losing to Hangman isn't a setback. If you can't lose clean to the world champion, who can you lose to? And he super chatted this to draw extra attention to it. So I will make sure people listen. Everyone listen. The super chat. Zach Barber adds, we complain about not getting clean finishes. Now we're preemptively complaining about getting one. There really is no making wrestling fans happy. So that's a broad generalization that you did not need at the end there, Zach. If I am to critique your argument, you shouldn't end with something so broad and inapplicable to the point that's being made. We're making a specific point, and we're not complaining about a clean finish. Let's differentiate here. What we're complaining about is that Fletcher is a special talent, and they're rushing him into a spot where he's going to lose, yes, to the world champion, probably clean. You're almost begging the question in the sense that we are stipulating to that we're getting a clean finish. We're not complaining about the clean finish part of it. We're not advocating for a screwy finish. That's not our argument, Zach. What we're advocating is not having the match. And then we're talking about the downside of booking it now, because they probably will do a clean finish. And if they don't, we'll be even more critical of a non-clean finish. I like a clean finish here. I think lose a TNT champ, losing a world champ is fine. But Fletcher's not Adam Cole. He's not Danny Garcia. It's not Dustin Ronald. This is like a guy who we want to protect and have these two cross paths and have it be a dream match. So your rebuttal to our complaints is about complaints we're not making, or it's certainly missing our point. Chris.
It's true that he can afford a loss, and it's true that the TNT champion should lose to the world champion. That's all true. The problem is that Fletcher has not had this belt for very long. He hasn't had any real high-profile defenses of the title, and he hasn't built up the sort of resilience you need to go into a high-profile match and lose. He hasn't won a high-profile match in a very long time. He won the title on a I think it was even on a Collision. It wasn't on a pay-per-view. He has had, I believe, one big defense, and that was against a New Japan talent, albeit one of my favorite wrestlers right now. If he had 4 or 5 defenses, maybe he'd beaten, I'll throw some names out there. Maybe he'd beaten Kyle O'Reilly and Danny Garcia. Maybe he beat Nigel McGuinness even, or somebody, just as a special one-off. And he was riding high on a bunch of high-profile defenses and then lost to the world champion. Absolutely. Fine with that. But he needs some big wins in a row to be able to afford a loss here. I don't think it's going to ruin him. I'm not saying that. And I think, Wade, we're both saying we want to see this match at some point, just not in 10 days' time. That's the only problem.
Yeah. So back to the chat. Derek Hubbard says, if done correctly, this can be a step of Fletcher's journey to the top of the card. Unfortunately, I think the focus will be solely on having a phenomenal match instead of telling a larger story. And that comes in how much faith do we have and should we have, Chris, in this aspect of Tony Khan's booking?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he can't have good aspects to his booking, but there's a weakness, which is, is there a master plan that pulls from history, looks at the context, and it's not just about, oh, the match is going to be good. And that is a concern that sometimes his booking is more about, oh, it's going to be a great match.
Yeah, and I mean, I think tonight's Dynamite is a perfect example. There wasn't a single bad match on the card, but I don't feel like anything big happened. I think there's a way to do both. I mean, it's a given. This is going to be a good match. I don't see any way it couldn't be, and it's probably going to go 30-ish minutes. I can see ways that they do tell a story with this. If Hangman wins due to having more experience, if Fletcher gets carried away and tries to do too much, there are some very simple, small things they can do to tell the story at the end of this match that will do that. Because it's that simple, and because I don't think it gets in the way of still having a good match, I have more faith that they'll actually go that route than I normally would with Tony Khan's booking. But it's not like I'm sure that that's going to happen. I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll do things right on this.
And I want to reemphasize, we're dealing with special circumstances, a couple injuries, 3 injuries. I mean, he's got depleted babyface roster that's more recent. And the 2 top names I mentioned, you got Ospreay off and Jay White, as I mentioned. Orange Cassidy. So yeah, there's a variety of things where there's reshuffling going on. And then you don't have Wardlow. And that could have been, I mean, maybe he didn't get the match, but he would have been at ringside, and it would have been an angle to set up the rematch. And now you've taken away something. If they were going to do Fletcher, we could, debate whether it was good or bad, even if Wardlow didn't get injured. And then we kind of know this was not a backup plan. But maybe it was going to be a screw finish because they're whatever. I mean, we just don't know. So if it's not the A plan, you can evaluate the B plan, or you can look at this as their A plan and go, what other option is there? What's the alternative that's better? And we don't have one that's just obviously better. That's right. Like when I laid out the 2 scenarios, you go, is there a third? And the answer is kind of no. But if this is an A plan, maybe it'd have been better for it to not have been the A plan and come up with something else and plan ahead. Anyway, point made. I want to go back to the chat. There's more comments. Ramen Noodle just goes, you got to do what you got to do at this point. Match should be fine. And that could be Tony Khan's thought. It's going to be a good match. Our fans will enjoy it. And hopefully going back to that point, Tony's thinking, how do I book this finish to tell a larger story arc that lasts a year regarding Fletcher? And that's what we're hoping for. Adam Kidd asked, would Okada have been a better choice?
No.
And why not, Chris? I think you and I will agree on this.
Because that's a big match. We haven't actually seen those 2 one-on-one in a while. The first Forbidden Door, they faced in a triple threat match, and I think they've been kept away from each other since. Okada Hangman needs to be a big match, and Okada ideally would not be going into that holding the tertiary title. Is it even that? I don't know what it is right now.
Yeah. All right. I want to keep going with the chat. So chat, keep coming at us with your chats. I lost my my tab somehow, as people might tell. Where did the tab go? So I can see. I was checking email and then I lost my spot here. Well, this is crazy. All right. Bear with me as I figure out how to get back. Come on, computer. Now I'm probably going to be doubled up. All right. No, now I'm hearing my voice in my own ear. This is a live disaster.
That's all right. It's an AEW show. We're used to it.
All right.
Oh, nobody wants to see this. This is solo, Chris. This could be terrifying.
All right, I'm back. It became a pinned tab somehow, and I didn't recognize it. So now we're back. Okay. Rizilla says Fletcher should beat Hangman straight up. He's a great heel, and the experience of being champion would pay off long-term, in my opinion. In all our talk here for over a half hour, Chris, we haven't brought up, why not just have Fletcher win? Have Hangman go on the chase again. If we look at the lineup of heel opponents, are there enough tempting heel opponents for Hangman, or is it better to just say, you know what, ratings were viewership was terrible for Collision, for Dynamite last week. It's not like Hangman is proving himself to be a draw, so let's try something different, and let's do a spark, and let's try to shoot someone to the top. And have Don Callis manage him. He can help him on promos, and he's going to have good matches. I mean, am I selling you on it, or try to make a case here, Chris?
I wouldn't hate it. Every now and then you have to shock people. Otherwise, its show is just entirely predictable. Mm-hmm. And in terms of shocks, this would be one that's a little easier to defend than some of the ideas that have been thrown around. Fletcher is almost definitely going to win that title at some point, barring some major catastrophe or cancellation. But doing it now, it's probably too soon, but it would certainly make people sit up and take notice. And it would make us think, okay, maybe we can't take anything for granted. And that's something I've been advocating for a while in wrestling, is that sometimes you just have to do the thing that everybody says you're not going to do.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, there's hotshot booking that's done out of desperation, and then there's a strategic true surprise. It's not done for the sake of surprise. You do it because it's a strategically smart move, but you recognize people don't think you're doing it. And you want to differentiate between those two things, because there's a lot of hotshot booking, turns and angles that are just done because you're not a good booker and you're having to resort to that. But if you pick a surprise, an unexpected moment, because you're ready to move somebody to a higher spot quicker than people anticipate, but you believe they're ready, and you have a good story in mind, I mean, that's not hotshotting. That's planning and being unpredictable in I think, a positive way. Rizilla adds, if all Fletcher does is lose big matches, it builds his resume as a loser. Give him the strap and build an impressive resume. All right. Then Pupil Parsons says, I think there is more of a 6-month story to tell with Fletcher being the champion for the next 6 months than Hangman, with the potential challengers on the horizon that Hangman has. So Parsons on, making the case that I was pitching to you, maybe we're underestimating. This is a master plan. Shoot Fletcher to the top. We're going to have our own homegrown star who is not a WWE or TNA or ex-WCW wrestler or whatever. He wasn't even on Top in New Japan, Okada. And let's just have our own guy and have a heel lead the way and line up babyface challengers.
I mean, if you look at the depth chart right now, I can think of two people right off the top who would be a reasonable challenger for Fletcher as the world champion, because your obvious first place is Kenny Omega. And then you can go into a Takeshita feud.
Yep.
Whereas if you keep it on Hangman, and this is something that's been asked in the chat a couple of times, if not Fletcher, then who? Who is the next heel down? Yep. Aside from Moxley, there isn't another heel that's anywhere near the top of the card.
Yep.
And that's part of the problem. So, if Hangman does win, where does he go next?
Yep.
So, maybe now I'm talking myself into it.
Interesting. Adam Kidd said it's too early for Fletcher to win the big one. But I agree. He's the best option at the moment to face Hangman. So it's a comment you're kind of alluding to. Sadler Vision 3 says Fletcher will be fine with a loss if they just keep booking him strong after. I don't like that this match is booked, but AEW is so thin right now, so I don't know any other match they could have made. And, that is the that is the issue here. While we were talking, a lot more chat comments came up here. Mark Biscotti says, the question you're asking, Wade, is what Tony Khan should have had clear before putting the title on Hangman to begin with. If all the injuries made all the difference, so be it. Tony's booking feels chaotic. Does it feel chaotic, Chris? Is that a unfair overgeneralization?
I think it's too early to tell right now. There's bound to be some chaos because of all the injuries, and I think the Wardlow one is a big one. But there have been times where, it has felt chaotic. It's felt like and I think the big difference is between the Tony Khan booking that had his first 4 world champions laid out, and I've been listening to the 5 years back Dynamite post shows when we were in the middle of that, and it was so clear that he had a plan to get from Jericho to Omega to Moxley to Hangman. He knew exactly where he wanted to go, and and it was beautifully done at the top of the card. And it's been so clear over the past few years that plan doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to give him a lot of leeway with all the injuries that we have, because he might have had a plan that just got thrown out with Ospreay and Swerve and Jay White, like you said, and MJF being off shooting movies, and there isn't really a good way to plan for that many people being out at once. I will reserve judgment on whether or not this is chaotic until I see how the pay-per-view goes. But if Fletcher does win, he'd better have a good plan on how to make that title reign mean something and not just give it straight back to Hangman at the next show.
Yeah, if you play a hot potato with the title and you're trying to establish a new star and then you just define them as not even a transitionary champion, just a short-term, let's create a spark. Yeah, I do not like that either.
I don't mind an occasional short reign here and there. Mm-hmm. Not every champion needs to hold the title for almost a year. And, I don't think that one quick reign quite qualifies as making it into a hot potato. But I think if he goes straight back to Hangman, it does make it look like we just wanted to shake things up.
Yeah. What about this? Chris J in the chat says having Hangman drop the title right away would bear him all the way to WWE, if not for CM Punk. Does Hangman need to hold the title just to have a long title reign? I agree with you. Some short title reigns are good, but at some point, you kind of, if you believe in Hangman, and by the way, the fact that he's not drawing ratings, and I brought that up, and there's bad viewership coming out of Labor Day weekend. That doesn't mean I don't think he's their best option, and they shouldn't build the company around him as a lead babyface. I'm just, again, throwing ideas out there. I don't want this to seem like advocating. I'm just trying to bring up the upside of another option. But there is sort of the pride thing, I guess, if you want to, book with that, with CM Punk in mind. I don't think Tony should worry about that.
I think more to the point is that Hangman will never go to WWE because CM Punk is there. But I don't think Hangman needs to be the champion to be the top babyface, especially with Ospreay and Swerve being out.
Mm-hmm.
Taking the title off him now does feel too early, but I don't think it's the end of the world, and I don't think it would upset him. He seems like the ultimate company guy. He seems like he's willing to do whatever is right for AEW at the time. And he's got plenty of time to get it back. They're not going to just, rocket ship him back down the card and leave him there facing, Jack Jameson for the next 3 months. He's going to be just fine. He'll be right back into the title picture within a couple of months if he loses. I think it would be slightly risky, but I don't think it's going to send him looking for his options.
Back to the chat. Derek Mitchell says, Kyle Fletcher lost in last winter's semifinals of the Continental Classic and will lose again against Page at All Out. You don't want one of your young lions to keep coming up short in big matches. You can tell a good story around that, Chris, though.
You could. I'm just chuckling at it because that is exactly what New Japan is doing with literally all of their young stars, is that they keep coming up short in big matches in favor of people who are just incredibly difficult to watch, and it's costing them. So I hope Tony Khan is learning from that. I don't think we're quite there yet with Fletcher, but he's in danger of getting that tag.
Sadler version 3 says the match being made, period, is a giveaway that Fletcher isn't going to win. He already has a belt, and Hangman is still fresh as champion. King of Strong Style says, I think Kyle is AEW's top wrestler given age and potential. Given that, I think it's a bad time for this match. He doesn't need a loss from Hangman. He needs more wins, more stories, move up the card more. And then Ramen Noodle goes, serious question. What percentage of top title matches in any company don't have an obvious winner? And I think that's a good point, because it's a small number, but it's not every situation is different. And the argument here, like I believe if you build up a match, people will pay to see an outcome that they are expecting, and that can work. If you tell a story, people just want to see it happen, even if they think they know what's going to happen. So having a champion retain against a challenger and being confident that they're going to do it doesn't mean people won't pay to see it. Match quality, just seeing the heel get their ass handed to them and being embarrassed, the satisfaction, the joy of watching it happen. I mean, a lot of movies are that way. You know what's going to kind of be the story arc, but you just want to see it. It's entertaining. The issue here is not that it's predictable, it's that it's premature. That you're taking a match that you want to feel ripe and a bigger deal by the time Kyle Fletcher crosses paths with Hangman, and not put him in a position where he might be defined down. So it's not so much about the predictability of the match; it's about what it could do to Kyle Fletcher. Now, push back in the chat, Chris, is he'll be fine if he loses. It's not that big of a deal. And I've said, if the story is there to support it, I think it can actually be an asset to forward Kyle Fletcher's character, to the next level, because he will snap over the loss. It'll be frustrating for him that it happened.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is that he hasn't had a signature big win on a pay-per-view in quite a while, especially not in a singles match. And if you keep putting him up in these positions where he's got a chance to win a big one and he doesn't, it can start to weigh on him and start to reduce the ability to believe that he can do it and that he is ever going to win a big title match. I don't think we're quite there yet, but that's definitely the path he's been set on. So I think just with a couple more title defenses under his belt, this match would feel a lot less dangerous.
They just got us excited and anticipating a era-defining TNT title run. And I want to see that. But if he loses to Hangman before he has that hot run with big wins against lower card where he bullies them, mid card where it's a good match but he decisively wins, and then top wrestlers where you maybe don't know the outcome, maybe he's going to lose the TNT title and he doesn't, he stacks up wins over 5, 6, 7 months. That's then when you're like, ooh, Hangman's been happy on Dynamite, defending every month on PLEs. But Kyle Fletcher, every 2-3 weeks, he's having these standout matches on TNT against a wide range of opponents. Yeah, he's beating up some tomato can lower card guys as a heel thug and getting too cocky about it. But he's had some impressive wins against top people who I thought might beat him too. You tell that story for 5, 6, 7 months, then people really will pay to see Hangman. But if you already give it away, then it's not like, what would it be like if those two were in the ring opposite of each other? You've already seen it and Hangman won. You can still tell a good story, but it feels less of a story. It feels like you've taken something away that maybe doesn't work. In addition to it, just his character isn't fully formed yet. And so that could be part of the story, but it's also a negative. Okay. Derek Mitchell says, Fletcher is dressing like AJ Styles when Ric Flair was his manager. It does seem Fletcher isn't authentic. Sadler Vision 3 adds, Fletcher's whiny voice is a flaw for me right now. I felt that way about Seth Rollins when I first heard him speak, but I got used to it. So maybe I'll get used to Fletcher's. You add an accent to it. It's less so when it's a young guy who's just coming along. It works. But yeah, I thought of that too. I was like, would it be better for him to put a little more work on putting a little more bass in his voice? Instead of talking like this, talk like this, a little bit more just guttural, manly sound. The thing is what seems like a flaw can also work for his heel act. You want him to be booed. You want Hangman. I mean, the job of a heel, not the only job, but the number one job is if they're at a similar level as your babyface opponent, is put the babyface over. If you're going to lose, make them seem stronger and that they accomplish something by beating you. And also make sure you don't get cheered, if you can help it, against them. And I think Fletcher's in that way, not a finished product, but the whiny voice and looking like he's cosplaying somebody who dresses like, on a high end. Maybe those are features, not flaws. Kyle Fassel adds an option. I feel like Mark Briscoe could have been a good option if they kept the momentum up with him. I kind of feel like they laid off of him for a while, though. I mean, he's obviously with MJF right now, so as a B plan, they'd have to abandon something else, and MJF doesn't want anything else that he's invested in being abandoned after Adam Cole and Hurt Syndicate and on. And I mean, it feels like so many things have gotten in the way of him getting to the finish line. So anyway, anything you want to add to?
No, I don't buy Mark Briscoe as a pay-per-view main event world title contender. He's an enjoyable character. He's popular, but he doesn't scream main event to me. Not anymore, anyway. Yeah.
Darrell Freeman jumps in. How strong would have Fletcher been if he won the title the night they let Dustin win? Because this match would be bigger, and you might or could have let him win and be a double champ. Yeah, they want to tell the Dustin story, but I mean. Yeah, I mean, Fletcher, if he was booked to be more on a hot streak, it might have worked. This might feel more ripe.
And if they had, well, I mean, I get if you're going to give Dustin his moment, you do it on pay-per-view. But Kyle not winning the title in that match and then only winning seemingly because Dustin was injured, which we don't know if he was going to win it off him or not anyway, but they had to rush it and do it on Collision because of the surgery that Dustin needed, which relegated Fletcher's title win to seeming like it was less important. I think that really did damage him, and that's part of the reason I'm saying he needs to accumulate a couple of title defenses. Darby Allin would be a perfect person for him to beat here. Then he would take some of that stink of a rushed, forced second choice title win that is unfortunately on him at the moment.
Pupil Parsons says Hangman is the Sting or Ultimate Warrior of the 1990 title win spot, where they had huge wins and then all their potentially low opponents left feeling like mid-carders. I'm worried for Hangman. So there we go. Okay. I'm fine turning to some other topics here. At the end of the show, we had Danny Garcia turning heel. He's felt like he's vulnerable to like kind of Jey Uso-esque. Like he's trying to figure out who he is. He's looking for leaders. There's, Jericho teases where he brings people in. Now we got Moxley kind of doing that. They've told a story with Garcia kind of putting up a good fight, earning Moxley's respect. Moxley saw something in him, but he's better than him. So Garcia's like, if I can't beat you, I'm going to join you. What do you think about the turn? And also, wasn't a red hot response to the turn. And I don't know if that's a great sign. Your thoughts on this story arc and the payoff tonight?
I'll admit that this is probably the first time in the history of professional wrestling that the hoodie spot got me, because before he took the hood off, I thought it was Hook.
That makes sense.
So, and the way it was positioned with Hook's promo a little earlier on is what probably helped to influence that. This seems like a good fit for Garcia. He's been up and down a bit. I mean, he came in as a face. He aligned with the Butcher and the Blade at some point. Then he went to the Jericho Appreciation Society. Then he left that, but he was aligned with Daddy Magic and Angelo Parker. And then he went off on his own, and we thought he was going to turn on Nigel. And he's sort of been floating around. He had
even without
TNT
turning, even not turning, there's been teases of turns where it's like almost, and then nope, I'm going back. Yeah.
I think he's stylistically, he's a great fit for the Death Riders. It's funny because he and Wheeler Yuta have kind of had this feud as well. Like they're sort of on the same level, and they have a very similar style, and now they're in the same faction. I don't know what the end game is here, though. How does he benefit from this? How does he get out of it? Where does this take him?
Does it lead to Wheeler Yuta breaking free as a babyface because Garcia takes the spot? We've seen that story before in factions. I
think Wheeler Yuta is the Dominic Mysterio of AEW. It's only a matter of time before people finally wake up and realize it. I'm curious how it works. I think Garcia has just been missing a piece. Like, he seems to have a lot of skills that would put him in good stead, but there just is some connection missing with a larger fraction of the audience that is preventing him from taking that next step up. He's always been there or thereabouts, and he's just, maybe this is what he needs. He needs a bit more of an edge. He needs to get rid of the goofiness. He still looks like he's 12. So if you put him in a faction which is just no frills, just beat the living daylights out of people, hopefully that'll help get him to the point where people actually take him seriously.
I said that the crowd response wasn't, red hot heat. Although Zach Barber says, Wade, did you hear the F you Danny chants? I am not denying there was some heat as the angle progressed, but there wasn't that, oh no, it's Danny Garcia, don't do this. So I think it comes down to there was something that wasn't quite where it should have been or could have been with him. So the turn itself, I don't think people were super emotionally invested in him not turning. And so when he did, it wasn't that shock. But I think, and Zach has a point here, I think they're going to be willing to boo him, kind of like Wheeler Yuta. I wouldn't mind Wheeler and Garcia just going after tag titles. I mean, Claudio can do some single stuff and not be in that. The dynamic with those two playing off each other could be kind of fun. I mean, I think there's potential here for it. I'm a big fan of Garcia's wrestling style as a face or a heel. I mean, I think he and Moxley have really been good, and I think Garcia isn't a guy doing a bunch of flips and dives and doing the meta shortcut stuff. He just feels like you can drop him into any era and he'd know what to do in the ring. He could call it in the ring, and work mid card, upper card. I've seen, that role in wrestling work, and he does kind of have the there's a certain innocence to him that feels like you want to root for it, but you're worried for him. And now as a heel, he's also got kind of that I'm a follower and I'm going to tap into a sinister side of myself, tongue twister, to try to impress Moxley. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it will be good, but I wouldn't have been against them doing a better, more consistent, and maybe having more faith that he could have been a good top of the second tier heel who fans just liked and they just accepted him in that role. But maybe they felt they did enough of that, and now they want to see if they can get him to the next level.
I don't think it hurts to freshen people up from time to time and give them a different look, so to speak. The tag team with Yuta would be a little undersized. Maybe if the Bucks beat Brodito, which certainly seems to be a match they're setting up, you could do something there, but like that's still heel versus heel. I don't think anyone really wants that. Yeah, he's got to find something other than I'm good in the ring. The likes of what was his name in Gunnar Scott in WWE, who was he was good in the ring, but literally nothing else. He had no charisma whatsoever. Garcia at least does have some charisma, and people do cheer for him at points. But that dance ain't going to work in the Death Riders, buddy. You're going to have to find something else.
Well, Chris J said, have Mox slap Garcia the next time he does that dance so he never does it again. I mean, that was just a bad idea. I don't know if he was catering to trying to become a meme or it was just, I don't know. But
it was over, though. That's the thing. People liked it.
But I am against doing things that are over if they're over in a way that defines you down and limits what you can do to contribute to the bigger picture. And I think it made him seem like a goof. People were laughing at him as a babyface.
I think there's a difference between a 5-second dance on the ramp during your entrance and hitting the Macarena over your fallen opponent in the ring when you're the Ring of Honor World Champion. Like, that needs to go away. I laughed the first time it happened. Now they're making it a thing. No, never. Stop. I don't know. I didn't have a problem with Garcia's dance because it was just something. He didn't do like a penta and spam it throughout matches. He'd do it during his entrance and in spots where you would expect a face to do a pose. It never really got to the point where I thought he was overdoing it.
It felt like it was an unnatural, unexplained thing that he did. Like, I don't why is doing this weird gyration to this weird music his thing? Like, it didn't feel authentic. It felt gimmicky. Like, hey, I'm bland. People don't know who I am. So I did this once when people were drinking backstage and said, oh, that's hilarious. You should do that in the ring. That'll get you over. People tweet about it. Put clips on Instagram. It's like, I don't know. I just don't feel like it had an explanation. It just felt like somebody trying to do something to get attention. That's But I'm with you. It's certainly better than having it be a thing you do in the ring that costs you momentum.
I do think that sometimes you just have to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, John Cena hit on his rapping by accident. Austin 316 was the result of an aside from Michael Hayes backstage that could have flopped just as easily as it became the biggest merchandise seller apart from the NWO, ever. I don't think that was ever going to get to that point, but sometimes you just have to try things and see what gets over.
And after about 2 weeks of trying it, I was saying, please don't do that anymore. So, I've just been like, okay, I guess he's going to do it. Adam Kidd, Danny Garcia is going to be really hard to rehab. I disagree with that. I think he's got talent. I think he's worth trying stuff with. Sadler version 3, I'm not a Garcia guy, but they have to do something with him in this faction and not make him heel lacking number 5,000 in AEW. Garcia's good. I mean, he's good in the ring. He's different. He's not. People are like, oh, he's got to hit the gym. It's like, he doesn't need to. I mean, Adam Kidd says he better stop dancing, hit the catering, and the weights. I think I've had a wrestler tell me this too. Like, oh, he doesn't look like an athlete. I don't. This is a guy who likes the gym. He's like, oh, I don't want him hitting the gym. And I'm like, not everybody should look like Anthony Bowens. I think Anthony Bowens is needlessly muscular. I think it slowed him down and it makes him look shorter and it makes him look like he cares more about lifting weights than building a character separate from Billy Gunn and scissor things. I mean, I don't know. I think there's room for a variety of body types, and I think Garcia looks like he's sinewy and tight, and has sort of that unexpected kind of amateur wrestler strength for his size. And I think if he put on more muscle, he'd look like a short, thick guy trying to be something he's not. So, now, can he can he tone up a little? I'm not gonna I wouldn't complain about that. But this idea of he should start looking more like Anthony Bowens, it's like, nah, just let him be who he is.
He doesn't have the advantage that someone like Zack Sabre Jr. has, who is a very similar style, but he's got about 6 inches taller than Danny Garcia, which would help a lot. He could stand at about 10 pounds, I think, but nothing. He doesn't need to be like Jonathan Gresham is a good example.
Yeah.
Is just he does look a little too swollen for his size. Taiji Ishimori actually would be a good one.
Adam Cole or Dolph Ziggler both said we put on a lot of. Or they both said in some context, but one of them very specific said, "I put on a ton of muscle, trying to look taller, and it was stupid." And now Cole definitely Cole would have been better off looking. Cole to me is not Garcia. Cole looked like, sorry, he's in a tough spot, but like he looked like he wasn't hit the gym at all and should have just toned up better. Garcia just looks like he is an athlete with a build that looks athletic, and I think he comes across it up. But Ziggler at one point was super thick and it didn't work for him. Cole, if you look at an ROH era for him, it looked like, oh God, it's like he can't be athletic anymore. So anyway, I'm fine moving on from that. Chris J said, I didn't expect Garcia. It was a nice surprise. I thought it might be Hook 2 or maybe Gabe Kidd getting revenge. Derek Mitchell says the black hoodie in wrestling has turned into the lights out spot in wrestling. Danny Garcia seemed anticlimactic. Why not turn on Nigel at Forbidden Door? He said, I think Garcia would have gotten more heat in London turning on Nigel than joining the Death Riders. What do you think about that, Chris?
Oh, undoubtedly. Nigel is a god. And if you turn on him, it would have been nuclear heat. Absolutely. But I do think being in the Death Riders is the right spot for him. You could have done the turn and then had him join the Death Riders later. I think that would have been fine. But yeah, this could not have been the reaction they wanted from this heel turn.
Yeah. I think it'll be fine. It just, the reaction would have been better. And they did kind of forecast it. Sadler Vision 3 says, I thought Garcia was obvious. They've been doing hints of him and Moxley teaming up in the past few weeks. I wasn't shocked, but I think there were other options. And it didn't feel like, it's inevitable this week. So yeah, we can look at that either way.
I think it was the best kind of obvious in that once he took the hoodie off, you were, of course it's him. But that wasn't my first thought when he came out. And that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Zach Barber goes, needlessly muscular, LOL. Maybe counterproductively muscular.
There you go.
Then there's people who are like that. Sadler Vision 3 adds, I don't think Garcia is a bad wrestler. I just think AEW has a lot of these shock turns with lower level wrestlers that Tony Khan thinks is a big deal, but end up meaning nothing because they want stars. All right. So this was we had a main event match of it was confusing. All the factions. There's all these people coming out. It's like, who's even in the match? Is it Samoa Joe? Is Claudio or is it Moxley? So we had Moxley, the Jacksons, Wheeler Yuta, and Claudio against Joe, Hobbs, Shibata, Bandito, and Brody King. $500,000 on the line in this one. I am so disappointed that we didn't end up getting a match with the Young Bucks coming out when they were really trolling them, where it's a cash prize of $100 just to troll them. And I think we're past that now. But what did you think of the story they told, Chris, going into this match with Moxley going, you guys can keep the money if we win? Your thoughts on that?
It was an interesting twist, but I don't think it, in the grand scheme of things, is going to mean anything else. It definitely motivated the Bucks to a degree. They still weren't willing to stand face to face with Brody King and Hobbs. But I remember you saying, it's probably just over a year ago now, that they used to do these cash money matches in the territory days and how you'd like to see them come back. And I would like you to strike that from the record because now they're doing them every week.
Yeah.
And it's gone way too far now.
It's like if you don't have friends. I had a friend in third grade and he had money. His parents had money, and so he got money, and he gave people $1 to be his friend.
Oh,
and so to me, like this, he was a nice guy. He could have just earned it. But yeah, he just was handing out 1s and 5s, and just so people would talk to him. And this sort of feels like when you got a cash prize, it's like a booker going, I don't want to do the work to make people care about this match, so I'm just gonna tack on that this is, that there's money on the line, and then people will care about it.
And I mean, 10 people in a tag match is just too many. Like, we're doing these every week now. They don't feel special anymore. It just feels the norm. New Japan does them constantly, but they're at the beginning of the card, and they're to preview matches coming up later in the tour. They have a specific purpose. The specific purpose of these matches is, I need to get everyone on TV doing fancy stuff. That's not a legitimate reason for it. And if this had been the only one we'd seen in a while, I think I'd have been way happier with it.
And they didn't bill it as an all-star 10-man tag. I guess it's the 8-man all-star tag. But when it's 10, and then we had $500,000, I mean, yeah, like, I don't know. It's a bit, it is a bit silly, and it is kind of becoming kind of like turn the lights off and on for Tony Khan. So I'm ready to move on and just promote matches in a with, booking matches so people care about them, and you don't have to, at least you're not paying fans to care.
I mean, I'll take $500,000 to go watch his shows if he wants.
Yes. I'll take John Moxley's 1/5 or whatever, 3/5, I guess he gave up to the Bucks. Yeah, I guess in a 10-man tag, everybody's supposed to get 100,000, and Mox was giving up his 100, but also his partner's 200, which I don't know how they would feel about that. Okay, this was in 2300 Arena, and we got our hardcore match of the week or whatever. Timeless Tony Storm and Sky Blue. We had a staple gun being used on Tony's ass cheeks, which led to Taz chuckling and Excalibur robotically reacting as he normally does. Danielson, I don't know. We'll get into Danielson on color in a minute. Hopefully I'll remember that. But yeah, then we had the staple gun to the boobs and the crotch. It made more sense on Tony Storm when Storm did it to Sky Blue, and she's wearing like these leather shorts. It's like the staple's not going through that. I can't even get a stapler through 3 pieces of paper sometimes. It's not going through that leather. But she sold it anyway. And then the mouse traps, and then the table didn't break. I don't know. I thought this was kind of a fiasco in certain ways, and then like fun. Don't take it too seriously, but like I don't like that in a hardcore match. I wasn't a fan of when Public Enemy did that in WCW, and they dumbed down the whole thing where they had an edge in ECW. I don't think hardcore matches should be comedy. I don't know. I mean, I'm just. What do you think, Chris? Do you like it better than I did?
No, I don't generally like this sort of a match anyway. I do think there is a place for them, but why was this a hardcore match? There's no feud.
Oh, I know.
There's no bad blood. Because
it's in 2300 Arena.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Yeah. I guess if they're going to Montreal, they have to do a screw job. Oh, wait, yeah, they do. They could have done anything here. I don't know why they just stop with the X street fight things. Can we just get off that? This has been a thing for like 30 years, and it still doesn't make anybody more invested in a match. Yeah. I do think hardcore and comedy can go together. I just don't think it needs to be when one of the competitors is your world champion. It just kind of cheapens the whole thing. And, I didn't really have any problem with any of the spots. It's not like they were sticking syringes through each other's cheeks or anything. But it just didn't need to be there. It didn't really do anything for me. I can't remember the last time Sky Blue won anything. So why she gave Tony such a fight. I mean, to have so many spots where Tony looked like she was going to win, and then Sky Blue found a reversal and power bombing her through a trash can and everything, just seemed like too much for her. I love Sky Blue. I think she's got a good future ahead of her, a lot of potential. But this just felt weird. It incongruous. I think it didn't seem like it belonged in that spot at this point.
Adam Kidd says it's Christmas when you have the Miracle on 34th Street match where you just do a zany, that's like, Halloween or Christmas when WWE does a gimmicky matches. Oh, we're in ECW Arena. Let's just do something. And yeah, there wasn't really a backstory. Zach Barber goes, it's a little different, Adam. I get your point. And Adam pushes back going, it's not different at all. You guys can take it out back. What was I going to say about that? Oh, we also, and this, I thought the shock of the night, no pun intended, shock of the night. Do you know what it was?
The fly zapper.
Yeah, that Taz never heard of a fly zapper paddle. He's like, what is that? It had to be explained to him. I mean, do they not have mosquitoes in Jersey or wherever? Like, I mean,
No, the rats eat them.
As a Minnesotan with a cabin, it's like those are essential. Well, actually, we use them for horse flies, or black flies when they're just because you can go on like a hike in northern Minnesota. There'll be a horse fly just adopts you as their human friend and ruins the hike because you can't. They dart all over your head and they're buzzing and it's annoying.
Yeah.
So they're invaluable, and I have owned several, and
Yeah, your boy isn't a hiker. The hike ruins the hike for me. But I was up in northern Canada last year, summer, and up there in the summer, the flies are so big they don't bite you; they just carry you away. So you need a heck of a lot bigger of a fly zapper than that. But yeah, that was a funny moment.
Yeah, Taz was entertaining. He was having fun. I don't think Philadelphia street fight should turn into a Miracle on 34th Street comedy match. I think you want to kind of protect what ECW kind of stood for and what hardcore matches are. But it did allow Taz to have some fun because he saw the tone of the match. After the staples to the boobs and the crotch, he goes, I have many lines to say, but I just can't. I've seen a lot of this building. That might be a first. After the staple guns earlier in the match to Tony Storm's butt, he says it's going to be tough going through TSA with that. Get out the old Pro Wrestling Torch Newsletter quote book where I used to. Yeah. It's one of the fun parts about the back issues from the late 80s and into the 90s where I just take the best quotes from TV, the funniest quotes from Ventura and Heenan and everybody else, and just throw them on one of the pages. Let's see.
I do think with the ECW, people always focus on the hardcore aspect of what ECW stood for, and they tend to forget the ECW also stood for some ridiculously good technical wrestling. I remember a match that Lance Storm had, I believe it was with Jerry Lynn, where there was not a single bump in the match. They worked the whole match safely with no actual flat back bumps. And you've got all of the stuff, the cruiserweight stuff that happened there, and all of the stuff that Shane Douglas did early on, and even Taz's matches went really hardcore spectacles. There was a lot of ECW that wasn't just weapons and hardcore, and I think that part of the heritage gets lost a lot, unfortunately.
Advocating cruiserweights, and then it was a promo territory too. I mean, the ECW was a promo territory like the AWA was known for, although AWA had some, the best hardcore matches in my life were Mad Dog Vachon, Crusher Blackwell, Bruiser Brody, Crusher Jerry Blackwell. Those are great. Go find them on YouTube and look at the crowd heat. And I was making noise as a kid watching those. So you can be a lot of things, in other words, all at once. Shane Douglas, Dick Flair, going after the hardcore hero. Ric Flair was ballsy, but Paul Heyman had run-ins with Flair. He had a spokesperson in Shane Douglas who was all on board for tearing down Ric Flair. Those are great. Public Enemy, hardcore tag team. That's kind of what they became known for, and then sort of a comedy thing in WCW. Their promos were really good. Flyboy was great, switching gears from comedy to intense, hardcore, sinister. Johnny Grunge was really good. So anyway, I could go on to do
Palace, Joel Gershner, you had them as well, who are a little more raunchy, but they're still really good on the mic. Yep. Steve Austin cut his teeth on promos there as well.
Yep. Getting those tapes in the mail and watching them back in the day, I didn't think, I'm going to see a hardcore match this week. I was like, I'm going to see innovative characters. I'm going to see crazy ring entrances. I'm going to see some hardcore wrestling, but also you end up getting a whole cruiserweights getting their due. Whatever. Good point. Malenko and Guerrero, as Derek Mitchell says, was one of the best of the era. Derek Mitchell says RVD, Jerry Lynn, Mysterio Psychosis, Malenko Guerrero. Absolutely. And the crowd ate it up. They weren't just all into hardcore stuff. All right. Willow Nightingale. I want to like her promos, but she's so self-referential about how upbeat she is. It's obnoxious. And her every sentence she says has a condescending tone. And it drives me nuts. I want to like her, but I like it. And it's just everything she says. The world of pro wrestling is bananas, but I try to stand up for what's good. When people defy it, I take issue with it. So I punch them And if it doesn't affect him, I'll punch him again. I don't know. I can't even fully replicate, but there's something about her tone that is more irritating for me because she's supposed to be this really upbeat person, but everything sounds like she's like a teacher at summer camp scolding kids for not obeying. I don't know. It's just not working. I think she's going to be a sneaky good heel if they decide to go that route. But this never-ending thing with Chris Statlander and don't trust her and all that, and then Harley Cameron doing her little guitar singing. It just, I don't know. Everything was just kind of cute. It just feels like it's also in this repetitive zone where it doesn't progress. It just kind of goes in a circle. So, I don't know. Zach jumps in and says, I thought this promo served a purpose. Stat is for sure not turning heel now. Maybe Willow is. Would that be a nice swerve?
I'd love that, honestly. One of my favorite characters when I was really heavily into wrestling to start was Evil Doink. And you can make a really good heel from an excessively happy, jokey person.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they could have done that with Bayley in NXT for a while and just really go the whole hog with her trying to hug people and actually just
we might see that. That might be where this is going.
That might almost be worth us hearing her in a monologue.
Oh, you don't like that?
Oh. I think I hear where you're coming from on Willow, and it's a shame because the character is great. The idea is great. She's really good in the ring, but there's just that it's syrupy is the problem.
She's the boss who thinks she's being nice to you, but you can't stand interactions with her.
You don't need a raise. Here's a piece of pizza. Get off my lawn. But I do think there's a very good chance that they pull that sort of bait and switch and do end up with heel Willow, maybe even joining the Death Riders. And then Statlander is sort of redeemed in everybody's eyes, and they all apologize for doubting her. And I would be very happy if that's the way they go. I'm not sure how likely it is, but the more we talk about it, the more I'm hoping it happens.
We can manifest it. Derek Mitchell says, I'm with you, Wade. I'm going to like Willow, but she's more annoying than likable. By the way, late Matt Bourne, he was great playing Doink. He was so good, and then the replacement just didn't quite capture that. And that's why I want like Bo Dallas to be with his current character, something where there's a couple sides to him. And I always point to my Fly by Rock example, where he'd be just cheerful and chipper, and then boom, he'd just flip a switch and go sinister, and you'd just be like, holy crap, this guy was just nice. And it's mafia movie type. Oh really? It's like you just suddenly can just make people pee their pants at just one little facial expression change. And I could see Willow just like going around ringside, just going, just lecturing people for not being happy enough, and having this silly smile. Sadler Vision 3 goes, she's the goody two-shoes that reminds a teacher to collect homework while the rest of the class roll their eyes. All right. Anyway, she's on a journey. I think she's talented, but there's something that just not working with her. Syrupy, lectury, whatever style that she's doing, as you say. All right, so let's see. What have we not covered from? Oh, Ricochet, Shelton Benjamin. So the build-up to this was like, I don't know who I'm supposed to like or not like. Like they didn't tip their hand. If the idea was, well, that's the goal. Ricochet was in the what's their GOA. I was trying to use their short name. They were heels, and then suddenly Ricochet started to sound like a babyface in his build-up to this. He's like, "Oh, we're not going to interfere," and then they did. And so now the, I think, rather unlikable MVP and Bobby and Shelton, who fans are, I don't know if they're still into them and cheering them or not. Well, let's see. But I don't find them compelling or likable. Now they're the baby faces against Ricochet, who I've started to find more likable, even with a haha thing. And GOA, I don't have strong negative feelings about, but now they're going to be booed. I don't know. It kind of plagues Hurt Syndicate. They're not clear cut enough anything. And then Ricochet kind of played into that. What have you thought of this?
Not a lot, to be honest with you. I had completely forgotten that was even a thing that they had talked about months ago before. And then the pay-per-view happened, and Ricochet and the GOA cost the Hurt Syndicate, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. Um, I'm not really sold either way. I think the Hurt business have been hurt, no pun intended, by the reports coming out that they just refuse to do business with basically anyone.
Yeah.
Whether or not those reports are accurate, the perception is out there now, and people think this.
Well, you know how you undo it is go and work matches and have a clear-cut character, and don't bury your opponents before you beat them, like MVP did on Commentary Speedball and Kevin Knight, which he didn't need to do. Why tear down your opponent before you beat them? He just mocked them and laughed them and demean them. When you're trying to be a babyface, don't be a heel. When you're a heel, don't play into cheers by talking about local sports teams. I mean, he's just been tone deaf on everything he's done. Mm-hmm. It's sent out ambiguous signals, and then they dress really well and look like stars, and so they're actually showing up the talent, and it's sort of this scorched earth. We're going to keep ourselves over. We're going to, as heels, not put over the baby faces. We're going to demean them. We're not going to do jobs in the ring. I mean, I don't know. It feels like there have been more trouble than they're worth.
And not only not do jobs, but not look vulnerable in their wins either.
Right.
So we have no reason to believe you're ever going to lose. You're not helping anything. You've just come here. It's almost like you feel like you've been demoted to AAA, and now the promotion like AAA baseball, and you feel like you have to sort of lord it over everyone. Mm-hmm. I thought that it's weird because the match today, the Shelton Ricochet match, I thought it was probably probably the best match on the show, but it also felt like it went the longest, and it was actually, I think, the shortest match on the show, which is a weird juxtaposition to me. They did a lot of good stuff. They clearly were working WWE style, and it looked a lot crisper than pretty much anything else we saw on the show tonight because of that. Like, they have experience working, if not directly with each other, in the same style. And it really showed. But I don't think this was a match that needed that. This should have been a much quicker win for Ricochet. Yes, he should have won with cheating. No issue there. Mm-hmm. But it felt like a really weird match to give multiple segments to get us to the outcome that we all knew was going to happen anyway. And really, like, you've got the leader of one faction up against the second banana in another. Mm-hmm. So are we going to see Lashley against one of the GOA guys next week? Probably. That's not going to be, that better not go 10 minutes. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a couple comments in the chat on this. They botched THS from the start, but to be fair, Third Syndicate hasn't done themselves any favors, not doing any jobs. Why isn't Bobby Lashley going after the world title and Shelton going after a mid-card title? Zach Barber says, I'd put all this more on Bobby and MVP than Shelton. And Sadler Version 3 says, I don't mind them wanting to be strong, but them apparently ditching the MJF feud really annoyed me, really screwed up a potentially good story. I don't care about we care about the reports, but what I want to see is do something to help the company. Like, be team players. Show up and go, we're at the end of our career. We're over. What can we do to leave this place better off? And I want to see that. And I'm not saying they won't do it, but I'm not seeing any hints that that's even a consideration. And then you just did have MVP, and I harped on it for weeks. He was saying counterproductive things that made it seem like he did not understand the business that he's in and the role that he was supposed to play in the context of AEW at all. I think he's done the same promo his entire career, regardless of the context. And without any guidance, I think his worst instincts revealed, unfortunately, that he wasn't either aware of how to or interested at all in doing business and helping AEW, and in the process, not sacrificing himself, but making himself more useful and having a good chapter here in AEW. Everything about that act just feels like they think they're above. It's like they show up at a party and they're just like looking at everyone going, we don't party with people like this. and let's get a couple drinks to get out of here. I mean, that's the vibe they're giving off, and that's what AEW fans want. So I don't know we'll see how the crowd reactions are, once they get into a position where there's a clear-cut story and it's a blow-off match, and how do people, is that enthusiasm still there? Maybe it is, and maybe this won't land, or they'll make up for it.
Yeah, they seem like the kind of guys who'd take $10 million to plant trees without ever having to show up.
There you go. Okay, let's go to email from JB, see if he can round out our topics here. Oh, yeah. So I saved this because I knew it was this first topic. I'm a real big fan of pivoting from Tony Schiavone to Bryan Danielson on the broadcast. Danielson did a phenomenal job making moments feel bigger at Forbidden Door, and he just has more energy than Tony. Schiavone's much better for interviews and play-by-play and Collision. I am not sold on Danielson as a commentator. I think he comes across as if he's just everything's kind of light, having a good time, not taking things seriously. When he does kind of try to take things seriously, I don't buy it. I think there's very few things that he strikes a tone that makes me think he's elevating it, except a dream match. But he's got to get into stories. He's got to sell the characters. I didn't think he stood out as bad tonight, but it's new. So I want to see him develop, but I don't know. There's something sort of detached and with the way that he approaches his analysis that sort of, I think there's been some clues in his trying to be a heel at times where it's like, we're just here to kind of have fun and entertain and then have a really good match. But I don't really see him selling me on the stories real effectively. And I thought he had really bad instincts when he tried to be a heel because he just was sort of self-indulgently wanting, it'd be more fun to do it. And he didn't really put thought into how to actually get booed and have the gimmick make sense. So I went into the skeptical. I'm not writing him off, Chris,
no.
But he didn't strike me as, okay, he's going to be as good of a color commentator as he was a wrestler. He really brought it tonight. What do you think? So
it's not the first time he's done commentary. He did the whole, was it the Cruiserweight Classic or the UK?
But calling matches. That's my point. He's called cards of good matches, and he analyzes the matches. But you've got to switch into a gear of the matches on TV are most often a means to an end. And there's a story, and your commentary needs to get over the characters, the stakes, and build up the payoff later. So he's good calling payoffs, but is he good at helping build up to the payoff?
So what it reminded me of actually is how Booker T got into commentary. I have the feeling that Danielson used to hold court backstage while shows were going on, and he would talk about what was going on in the ring, have people listen to him, and then somebody said, you should do this on the mic, and that's where he is. I want to say he's infuriating to listen to, but I don't mean that in that I don't like him. I mean, sometimes he comes out with absolute brilliant insights that only somebody who wrestles at his level could come up with, which I think does add a lot to the commentary. That's the exact role his sort of commentator should be playing, to tell us how things are in the ring. Taz does it as well. But then he doesn't do the other stuff that Taz does, which is what you're talking about on the periphery, and not talking about the match, but talking about everything around the match, and being a promoter as well as a commentator. Mm-hmm. And that's where he needs to find the balance still.
Yep.
I don't feel like his voice is well suited to this. He doesn't have the weight to his voice that Excalibur does, that Jim Ross does, that the good commentators sound like they have a strong voice that you want to listen to, and he's just not blessed with that. So that's harder to fix.
At least his inflections sound human, unlike Excalibur, who emphasizes points in a way that doesn't sound like there's emotions behind it. He's just trying to sound like an announcer's supposed to sound.
It worked for William Shatner.
Well, with Danielson, the voice isn't great, but I'm not going to get. To me, the inflection matters more than the voice. Like a baritone voice like Excalibur doesn't work if it doesn't feel like he's feeling human emotions. He's just imitating what he thinks emotions are supposed to sound like. And that's a issue. It's an issue when he calls spots like this, and it's just talk like a normal person instead of like what you think an announcer supposed to sound like. He did it. Oh, whatever. I don't want to go off on him, but
unbelievable.
Oh, I hate that. Just go unbelievable. Like just stop. Oh, I think he's so close to being really good, but he needs someone to go just in his head, just headset. Stop talking like that. Talk normal. Stop doing gimmicky. Yeah, it just feels, Anyway, Danielson, I think, still has a chance to be a good announcer. Obviously, he has a rapport with the audience. He's human. He's a human being. He comes across as a human being who loves pro wrestling. But when he's selling, I want to get the sense that he can sell angles in a way that doesn't feel like there's a little smirk on his face. Like, isn't this fun? We're doing an angle.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
I think in a 3-person booth, you have a luxury that you don't have in a 2-person. And that is just don't have him do it.
Yep.
Have him stick to what he's good at And then when the other two are doing the other stuff, just have him sit there and listen and learn, and only step in when he needs to. Like, he doesn't have to be doing this stuff because Taz is good at it, and Excalibur also has a microphone. I've done a lot of studying of this because I do announcing for our local basketball team, and I would love to get into commentary at some point. Hire me, Tony Khan. But one of the important things that you need to do is to remember every good legendary commentary line was ad hoc.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Yep.
Came about on the spot. I mean, I'm a football fan.
Someone had to tell them backstage or after the game. Oh, that was good.
The most famous commentary line in England is when they won the World Cup in 1966, and they scored the last goal, and the commentator said, some people are on the pitch, they think it's all over, and then the goal went in, and he goes, it is now, and that became a legendary line. Touch 'em all, Joe, you'll never hit a bigger home run in your life, when Joe Carter hit the walk-off home run in the 93 World Series. There's no way that was planned going into it. You know, stolen by Bird, blocked by LeBron. All of this stuff just came to the commentator in the moment. They didn't go in with scripted lines. When Danielson is just talking about wrestling, he adds something that basically nobody else on the planet can do. So let him do that, and then let the others do what they're good at, and eventually he'll get comfortable with that stuff.
All right. Up next from JB. I thought it was a nice touch that Brandon Cutler returned to tell the downtrodden Bucks to shut up. I thought the scene of the Bucks trying to find a place to sit in the cafeteria and everyone rejecting them is a fun continuation of them. You know, when you have power and you abuse it and you're a jerk and then you lose power, people are not going to embrace you and quickly forgive you. And obviously the Bucks have done nothing to endear themselves to anybody, but to have Brandon Cutler not be their lackey anymore and turn on them, that was a fun. I mean, I wouldn't even call it a callback. It's just like, hey, how does Brandon feel about him? Well, now we know.
Yeah, I thought it was fun, and it was short enough that it didn't really damage the show in any way. It's not like you needed to watch shoulder content to understand. But Cutler had been with them on TV for a very long time. It worked for me.
So JB also says, Shelton seemed majorly over tonight, which is wild to see in 2025. Although the Hurt Syndicate have been unclear heels or faces at various times during their AEW tenure, I feel like they did a good job defining who was who tonight, with Ricochet demanding no one at ringside because you knew that he was going to try to find a way to skirt his own demand. And that's the thing is what people like Shelton and always have. I don't think it's shocking in 2025 because it wasn't shocking in 2020 or 2015 or 2010. People like Shelton and they kind of, want him to get pushed more. The key is our Hurts, are collectively Hurt Syndicate going to stay over, or are they going to be kind of selective in who they cheer for? And are AEW fans, quote, savvy enough to not cheer people who are actually undercutting the company they love, but they might think Shelton is an innocent bystander in that.
Yeah, and it's weird that with all of the people with all of the contacts backstage that we don't really have a concrete picture of what actually went on there. I think a lot of people are willing to believe that it's all MVP and that Shelton is completely innocent in this because we've never really heard of Shelton being that sort of a politicking type of guy. If he was, he probably would have had a much longer and higher up the card career in WWE when he was.
He might just be the unpopular kid who moves to a new town and now he's popular and he's going to bully. He was bullied, but now he's going to bully everybody. Like he was never got his way in WWE and it was frustrating. And now he's in AEW. He's like, oh, I'm gonna push my weight around now because I'm this, getting these big crowd reactions and I got MVP in last year. I don't know. I mean, yeah, and I don't have strong reporting enough as is evidenced by how I'm covering this. To pinpoint who's more of a problem. Yeah. I'm trying to stick to what they're doing on air that I find isn't helpful, and some things that MVP said where I just said, do you understand like what you're rolling, how to get the act you're doing over and how not to bury your opponents before you beat them. I noticed AEW putting tweets on the side of the screen, much like they do during UFC events. I like the tweets.
Yeah, I think they're pretty inobtrusive, and it's going to drive engagement because there are a lot of people out there who would love to see their name on the screen, so they're just going to keep tweeting about AEW until they get to see their name there.
Well, I mean, if that's the goal or a side effect, either way, it's not a negative. I Okay, I know it made sense tonight with the Bucks needing money, but these thrown together all-star for the money tag matches feel more often than not like boring and lazy booking. I wouldn't have a problem with it tonight in a vacuum, but if it weren't happening weekly, yeah. The stipulation for MJF Mark Briscoe has to be a dog collar match, right? MJF has had the iconic dog collar match with Punk, and the Briscoes have had iconic dog collar tag matches with FTR, all under the AEW ROH banner. The level of blood violence this feud calls for at this point also makes sense. I'm intrigued to find out Saturday. And I thought there was something else related. Well, what your thoughts on that as I look for?
Yeah, it's a good thought. I did want to bring up the MJF little promo because I hated it. I think if I had the pre-tape,
so
I think
let me read what JB said, because that's what I was looking for before I was going to throw to you. I did like MJF using his real life wedding as a way to really get the audience to want to see the Briscoes really beat him down. It wasn't the standard your sports teams or city is stupid trope. So Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, that was fine. I think if 2 days after my wedding, I had called my brand new wife a bitch, I would not be married anymore. And I did not like that at all. It felt ridiculous. And then, of course, he had to get in there to threaten to kill someone, which, we've been over that 150,000 times.
And get red-faced, frothing, and yell.
Yeah. Like, ending someone's career is about as far as I'm willing to go with a threat. Especially when you're a heel, I think you can get away with that. But just, can we get to the point now where we're starting to question if MJF is actually good at promos? Because I don't think he's
undisciplined. He's undisciplined and overwrought.
He's just got so obsessed with getting the cheap pop and trying to skirt the edges of what's acceptable. And I think he stepped over it today. It's just like, where do you get off calling somebody a bitch because they don't want you to go and fight somebody instead of going on your honeymoon? Like that's just uncomfortably unpleasant. I did not like that at all. Dog collar, though, I like it. It's a good suggestion. It makes sense for the feud. It makes sense for the two people involved in it. And it's a way that MJF could lose. I don't think he will, but he could lose without having to actually eat a pin and come out on the official losing side. Like it's a way to lose without actually losing, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, Sadler Vision 3 in the chat says MJF might be like Cody. He needs to be reeled in. It's too extra if given too much freedom. MJF's a good promo. It's just it's like I'll use a food analogy. There are some dishes that are good with 5 ingredients, and then there's like 8 more put on top, and you lose any balance, and it's too much. Or salads. Like I used to like salad bar era. Oh man, I just like I'd have like 20 different ingredients, and it's like now I know like a really good salad is about 6-7 things in it, and they all just come together, and there's a good balance to it. And MJF is just like more, louder, more red faced, more swearing, more bitch, more shocking, more shock jock stuff. And I felt like he would have outgrown it by now. Maybe he thinks he's like being married and the news being out there, he's just going to use that. And so I'm going to be the jerk husband. But I think there's more heat in throwing in people's faces how great his marriage is than there is in this kind of. I mean, I use the term hack with MJF a lot, and I'm harder on him because I think there's so much talent there if it just were dialed down. But it's hack to just get married and then start saying, I call my wife a bitch.
Look at the heat that Carl Anderson got talking about his hot Asian wife all the time.
Yep.
He could easily go down that road.
Yep.
I do think a better comparison is not Cody Rhodes, it's Vince Russo. Because Vince Russo had some excellent ideas, but they needed to be trimmed and tightly controlled. And when he didn't have someone doing that, it was awful. And that's where we are with MJF. He has some great ideas. He has some great skill, but unless he has someone to put blinkers on him and keep him on a very specific path, he just goes all over the place. And before we know it, somebody's on a pole.
Yeah, it's a death wish. It's red-faced. It's frothing. It's spitting. It's leaning at the camera. It's getting wide-eyed. It's swearing. It's yelling at the top of your lungs, over-modulating. And it's none of that. Any hack can do that. MJF's gift is he doesn't have to do any of that to sell us. He doesn't have to call his wife a bitch. He doesn't need to yell. He doesn't need to get red-faced. He doesn't need to end every interview leaning into the camera and being bug-eyed. I mean, it's just like that's hack stuff that somebody who doesn't have the nuance and grace of his talking ability can do. But, I mean, I've criticized him for years for this, and he keeps doing it. So he must really believe that yelling is the key to getting over instead of being the guy who doesn't have to yell and gets over, which is, yeah. Zach Barber says, you just lost me. Chris Russo is trash.
Oh, he is now, but some of the stuff that we loved back in the 90s came straight out of his head.
Yeah. No, I give Russo credit for being a disruptor in that room with Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, and the Gerald Briscoe, the Yes people. He tapped into something, but boy, did he not realize what the guardrails and the editor, how valuable they were, and what Vince McMahon did to edit out 85% of his stuff and change the 15% that was a good idea but flawed. And boy, on his own, did he just. And then in the Nitro book by Guy Evans, it's like, oh yeah, WCW executives hired him because he was a guy writing the top-rated shows on Raw. And those executives knew nothing about his limitations. And Russo is charismatic and engaging, affable personality. I interviewed him out in LA for hours and hours with Ed Ferrara, and super, like, if you meet him, it's just like there's a charisma and a you want to listen to him and he wants to listen to you. And I don't know, like there's a lot of like things where you just could imagine him selling himself to an executive who doesn't understand wrestling, but he just was an absolutely horrid booker when he was a lead writer. I mean, he was horrid. I mean, it's like anyone who even starts defending him, it's like, you just didn't watch it or you don't understand wrestling. Like it is like, I mean, it is open shut. He was horrid. And destructive in every sense of the word in every job he had after he left WWE. Sorry, Vince. We got along. It was a good interview. You changed the course of the industry for the better. But you're not a head writer. How will the interactions between Hook and the Ops continue to go, or is this just a one-off and Hook will move on to do his own thing after his recent return? Could this be used as a vehicle to turn Hook heel? Perhaps he would be better in that role. Yeah, it was kind of a bummer when Hook didn't get much of a response coming out to his new music. He did the little thing. I'm fine with you guys abandoning me, and then but I'm going to do it on my own, and I'm fine with that. Or am I? So it's a little Hook, pun unintended, but also it works. What do you think, Chris?
I thought that was the best interview he's ever done. He seemed so much more relaxed and natural on that pre-tape. The backdrop seemed to work really well with what he was trying to get across. I don't know where he goes from here. I don't think it's going to be the Death Riders now. That ship has sailed, because with Danny Garcia joining, it wouldn't make sense to throw Hook in there as well. The Don Callis family doesn't need him. Maybe he's going to bring some people in of his own. I don't know. But I liked him sort of saying, okay, thanks, and moving on without turning. That's a nice thing that we don't see very often is factions splitting up without people hating each other. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he just seemed very comfortable, very at home on that mic, and hopefully we see more of that.
All right. Also from JB, do Garcia and Yuta both work together in the Death Riders? We talked about that. Seems like this town isn't big enough for the both of us situation eventually. I'd love that kind of story if it goes that way, redeeming Yuta and turning him face. Chris, you can revisit that if you want.
No, I think we touched on that earlier. I still feel the same way. Like those two could work well together, but they've got history, so we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Garcia got major heat tonight, which is a good sign for a character that had grown cold over the last few months. I'm glad they did turn him rather than in Nigel's corner at Forbidden Door. So counter thought there. Yeah, it wasn't a shock. He didn't get that, oh my God, no. But, just being the punk who's selling out to Moxley, you sold out. That was good. Sadler version 3 on Hook, by the way, says, I hate the word, but the aura of Hook is gone for me. I want to see something different. He's got work to do. I'm not saying he can't do it, but this is a shift. And they're asking more of him. I agree. There's still a little weird inflection in the way he talks, but it didn't feel like as affected or put on as it has. It's just like, okay, that's what he sounds like, and he's actually talking to us and not just kind of, I don't know. It was so hard to describe what his promos were before, but I'm intrigued. I'm open to it working, but I'm not convinced we'll see. But I mean, I think there's enough there where you give him a chance to do something new in this chapter.
And I think that's the key, right? It's like he's shown enough ability, he's shown enough potential that you want to give him a chance to stand on his own, to cut some promos, maybe to lead a small group. Let's see what you've got there. Let's give him the chance to sink or swim. And if it doesn't work, well, you haven't really invested a tremendous amount into him, and you move on.
Cool. Anything else you want to bring up from the show tonight, Chris?
I'm just looking at my notes here. No, I think the last thing I wanted to bring up was that Hook promo, which we just talked about.
Any thoughts on the Mercedes tag? We didn't cover that. I don't
It
think.
was just there, really. I mean, Riho is she's that microwave contender that you just bring in when you need to bridge a gap to whoever is actually going to take the title off Monet. It didn't really do anything for me. It was just kind of there. It wasn't bad. Nothing on the show was. Emi Sakura probably needs to not be wrestling on TV. She's just looked really slow. But yeah, it was fine. The whole show, like I said at the beginning, it just felt like they were laying the groundwork and setting the table. And I think we're going to see a lot of payoffs. They're setting up a lot of payoffs for All Out.
Kyle Fassel said, haven't watched AEW in a bit, didn't really feel invested in any of the characters tonight. Edward Sladek said, I don't know, less than 1,000 people in attendance. The arena didn't feel like it made AEW feel bigger, better. I talked a lot about that in the Wade Keller hotline today for VIP members, so check that out, VIP members. It's been kind of a theme. Small venues are fine, but this one wasn't great optics for me. And they should have done more to talk about why this building was special. It's assumed knowledge. It's Tony Khan, Jason Paul and I talked about this on the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast Tuesday flagship. Check that out. Our Blue Logo show, podcast only. Search Wade Keller, or find a link on PWTorch.com in the podcast section. And I said Tony Khan books for Tony Khan. Like, his target audience is who he has been as a fan. Everything he has experienced is the knowledge he assumes that his viewers have. Everything he sees on social media is what he expects the audience to know. Everything he watched on Collision and on Rampage and on ROH with diminishing audiences in each progression there, he books as if you watched it and know what he knows. He books next week's show for Tony Khan of this week. And it serves him well in certain ways. No one's been more successful as a challenger brand to WWE, but it would be nice to see him adjust to that. And ECW Arena as an iconic building, obviously people know that, but people know who AJ Lee is, but WWE still put a vignette together to really tell the story the way they wanted. And I think it would have been good, Chris, to go, here's why we're in this building. It's not fancy. It's they don't call it a dump because, I mean, they don't want to screw over the 2,300 people. But, like, this is not a fancy building. It's not a historic building. It's not architecturally gorgeous. I mean, the TNA tapings that I went to last week in the Minneapolis Armory, that's a gorgeous, historically significant building with a absolutely top-notch renovation that stays true to the architecture on the exterior and the interior, but modernizes it. That's not ECW 2,300 Arena. Embrace it, but talk about it. And I know they don't own the trademark for ECW and they don't own the footage and there's limitations. But Chris, if you're going to do a residency there, you don't want someone tuning in and watching going, what happened to them? Where's the basketball hoop hanging down? Like in ROH back in the day when they're in high school gyms. It's one step removed from that if you don't know the history.
And I think that's part of the problem. You said if you're going to do a residency there, don't.
Yeah.
Just don't.
Yep.
Doing it one show there is fine.
Yep.
I had this problem with another arena they were in recently, and I think I was on a post show for that as well, where it was the show where the MJF and the Hurt Syndicate sort of breakup started with Shelton closing the door to their own locker room, and the door just looked like my shed. Like it's just if you're going to be in those buildings, you need to make it look at least like a high quality venue if you can, and if you can't, maybe reconsider using it.
And they went to a parking garage for promos, which is probably smart because I don't know if there's any place backstage in ECW Arena where you can do promos and not have it look like the giant shed that it is.
The catering that they did looked like it was shot in a tent outside.
It was. That's because it was. Yeah, because they don't have room for catering.
This is not where I want to see my multi-million-dollar company doing wrestling shows. It just doesn't fit.
Yeah. Pupil Parson says, I feel like AEW regained the magic, but peaked it all in, and they've had a hard time getting out of that hangover, especially with Ospreay and Swerve on the shelf and Kenny gone again. So, yep. One of the things, Stokely Hathaway and FTR, Cash almost managed to get to the ring without getting in the face of a fan. At least he didn't blow snot on him or almost start a fight needlessly like he did a couple times recently. He's just come across as tawdry and trashy, not heat generating, and like Bully Ray crossed the line sometimes too, and that was a controversy once. He's trying to do that, and the selection of fans he's been picking out, I don't know. It's felt like if I'm Tony Khan, I'm like, I don't want that, and they didn't really stick with it this time. But then Dax decides, hey, what Cash has been doing should be our gimmick, so I'm going to go to ringside and get into it with all the fans at ringside, challenging people to a real fight. And then a weird thing with a camera, tripping over the cable and beating up camera people. I didn't understand what was happening. But then it was classic Excalibur Chris. That was uncalled for. Did you just is that AI pushing a button like, oh, I recognize something happened that's I'm going to say uncalled for. It's not even a human. It's not something a human would. That's uncalled for. Like, just talk to us instead of saying phrases and tropes. And then Taz said, what's wrong with those guys? And Danielson called it unprofessional, which was quite an understatement. I kind of chuckled at that. I didn't think any of the announcers did a good job trying to figure this out, but I also don't really blame them because I don't know what was happening either, and I don't know what they're going for.
Yeah, that was a whole weird segment, and unfortunately, the "can't get no hose" line continues to be the most over thing about the whole feud. Yep. It's weird to me that the two best people on the mic were not anywhere in the building this week to push that feud forward. I mean, Stokely's good, but he's not holding a candle to Christian or even to Copeland at this point. That match, we know it's happening. I don't particularly want to see it. I don't enjoy seeing Edge in the ring anymore. But I don't really know that they needed this weirdness to do anything. And I don't think it was productive at all. And like you said, it was just confusing. Like, why?
Yeah. All right. We'll wrap up there. Chris, thanks so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Appreciate it. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Seriously, if you like what we're doing, support us, and we will give you a lot in return. This is not charity. It's not a tip jar. VIP membership gets you a lot. There is fascinating back issues of the newsletter at every turn. I think you'll be just blown away at what our type of journalistic, contemporaneous, hard-hitting, unapologetic, unaffiliated, uncompromised coverage was like. In the 80s, late 80s, throughout all the 90s, that fascinating decade in the pre-internet, pre-website era. It's a history lesson waiting to be had. It's entertaining. Some of the most historic, I'll say it, the most historically significant long-form interviews of some of pro wrestling's biggest names, promoters and on-air talent, and wrestlers, announcers, bookers, in those pages. It is a treasure of content, not just stuff that I did, but a great team of writers. Check it out. Go VIP. Learn about wrestling history. On-demand access to 20-plus years of podcasts. All your favorite events from the past 20 years we've covered. All the top stories we've written about and podcast about. PWTorch.com/GoVIP tells you all the ways to sign up. That's PWTorch.com/GoVIP. It is compatible with Apple Podcasts. No jumping through hoops. No advanced passwords. You sign up. You get an email. You get a link. You click. And you're on the feed. You can also create customized feeds for shows and groups of shows because we put out so much stuff. You're probably going to want more than one feed on your phone so you can kind of stay organized. And an ad-free website that loads fast and doesn't have clutter. So all kinds of reasons to go VIP. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Love to have you as a member if you made it to this part of the show. I can tell you, you're a candidate. You must like, to some degree, what we're doing, even if you don't agree with everything we all say. Go check it out. Thank you, everybody. We will talk to you Friday night after SmackDown. But if you haven't yet, check out the flagship with Jason Powell from yesterday. Audio only podcast show. Search Wade Keller to get that. Thanks, everybody.